think will relate. Because if it isn't porn, it's some other kind of addiction, some other kind of thing that they hide behind or can't break loose from. And so you don't have to connect only on that kind of addiction. And so your story is universal almost, that expectations didn't happen, devastated because of shocking announcement. And so we relate more than you suppose. When you hear my talk, you'll realize. But I was interested that you said you had expertise as a storyteller. And that could mean multiple things, but typically when we hear storyteller, it's somebody who gets out and shares these, verbatim stories, or they have them, and it's to entertain or sometimes teach a lesson. But then, when you said my stories were that I told myself a lot of lies, and so I didn't really make the connection whether you are like a professional storyteller, and one of your best stories was about telling yourself lying stories or something.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention at the end of it, because of the decision, I can now tell true stories that I value, and he really does.
So I would connect that, about when you tell that, to say, this is the kind of storyteller I am, but my stories keep improving, something to that effect. And then, of course, when you make your comments, forget that one that I just said, it comes later, don't do but, just leave those kind of comments out.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't quite catch whether unconditional love changed his journey out of pornographic addiction, how to say that, or if you just chose to accept it and leave it there. It was very unclear to me.
Is that important to the story?
Not necessarily.
Because part of that
I would like to
desire is to see whether or not you found ways to bless him through your unconditional love.
Right. So, and this goes back to the comment you did the last time I got up here, was he looks like kind of a dirtbag in your story. I would like to paint him in the best light. So, is that important to tell his side of the story?
So here's the problem with ever bringing anyone else into your story that you're telling. Is in any story, people want to see a resolution. So if there's no resolution, which is what she's talking about, then they're left hanging, wondering, okay, well, was there a resolution? And it gets their mind walking it down a different path. The first stories that when you first came up here, had nothing to do with that necessarily. Part of your husband had to do with you being a mother and this, that, and the other. And you talked about giving your children a bath and contemplating leaving. So that's a completely different story, but that's completely on you. And you can bring a full resolution with that. Now, I'm not telling you to do one story or the other, but I do agree that the mind wants a closure. Otherwise, it's going to continue to seek that closure. And if there isn't closure, maybe it would be a better idea to do a different story or a different part of the story.
So if I mention something like, I could now hold his hand through his recovery, is that enough?
Sure.
Resolution?
Sure.
Unconditionally holding his hand.
Yeah, so he doesn't have to be recovered right now. To say, but it would be great to say he's going through the recovery process right now, and I'm able to in this moment go and love him throughout the whole entire thing. That's a great resolution. Absolutely.
I'd like to ask, what's the connection between gratitude and unconditional love? Because you're an expert in unconditional love, but you're saying how many need tools to feel gratitude? And so if your tool for loving your husband was, I am going to find the best in him and I'm going to love him, and this will help him to make the changes he needs to make. But for me, that is a disconnect on which is your main tool. Is it love or is it gratitude? Is gratitude enough to turn an addiction and betrayal situation around?
This is my opening for my event where I'm having Kevin Clayson come and speak about flipping the gratitude switch. So he's focusing more on the gratitude, and I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but just a little seed in my story of how I can be grateful for all of my trials, and that gives me the tools to flip it.
Well, you could use the gratitude to introduce Kevin. you know,
Yeah.
instead of.
Yeah, one of the things that I was just unclear on was the connection between the unconditional love and the gratitude, and maybe throwing in a small point of where you use gratitude in that scenario. Like, where did you actually see the gratitude, or in that moment, even talk about it, guys. I was in this moment where I had a choice. I could either see all the horrible things that my husband had done or whatever, or I could express gratitude for the wonderful aspects of our marriage and our life. And I was in that moment able to literally flip that switch and see the gratitude. Guys, today we're going to hear from Kevin Clayson, who's talking about flipping the gratitude switch. You know, whatever you want to do there. Yeah, well,
I didn't hear your presentation, but I know for me, the doorway to unconditional love is gratitude.
Yeah.
There you go.
great. Oh, so one other thing that I felt like you fell out of power when you asked your questions.
Oh, because I'm uncomfortable doing it.
You're right. So own the questions. The questions are some of the most important parts of the story. Like, the story's great, and people are going to connect if they connect with you. But where you're really going to find the greatest connection is in the asking of the questions, because you're bringing the crowd now into it, right? So you started off here, you took them down. I didn't really hear a question now. Well, you did say,
I forgot about it.
well, you did say, you said, who here has trouble loving themselves?
And that was the second down.
Oh, was that the second down? Okay. So you said, who here has trouble loving themselves? And first of all, that's a question that a lot of people aren't going to want to answer. Because they may or may not even know that they're having trouble loving themselves. So I would widen that question a little bit. I would figure out, in that kind of line of thought, what are some questions that she could have asked, rather than how, who here has trouble loving themselves?
What was right wants to love themselves more?
Sure, that's a better question. I think everyone wants to love themselves more. No, I mean, I think it's
Struggle with
definitely better.
unconditional love, who struggles
Sure,
with
who has struggled with
love?
unconditional love? How many of you have felt?
It's for love of self.
Oh,
That's what I'm
okay.
going for.
Yeah.
So,
How many of you have ever been too hard on yourselves?
There you go.
I think that's an easier question. Raise your hand, and I think that's a quick question where everyone's like, yeah, I lay hard on myself.
Your own worst judge or something.
Correct. How many of you feel like you're your own worst judge sometimes? Raise your hand.
The question, the thing that I wrote down when you said that was that you want to be careful about your questions and making sure they don't leave safe space, or they don't ask the audience to leave safe space. And when you're saying who struggles with unconditional self-love, all of a sudden it's like, is
Am I gonna
it
be
safe?
unsafe? Yeah.
Is it safe for me to raise my hand, or am I going to be
Myself,
leaving
yeah.
safe space by doing so? So you don't want to ever invite them to do something that could potentially cause them to leave safe space.
Anything else?
Yeah, I just want to say, the first time you spoke, Heather, there were so many comments around and they were all different. And this one, everything everybody else has said were the things that I had kind of picked up on. And so I think that that's a sign that it's really gotten a lot more
Absolutely.
streamlined and more clear in your message. And there are now specific things to work on instead of, I think that's what we're all hoping for in this class, right?
I'm seeing probably an amazing improvement, and the fact that she jumped up when I said who wants to speak was awesome.
And her intro questions were done with a smile and energy and super cute. So,
Absolutely.
I kind of like her.
Okay, big round of applause. Oh, did you have something else?
I was just going to say that this is a very prevalent problem. Like, I heard a statistic recently, a state president has said it's a duck, duck, goose problem. Everyone that's goose is it. So it's like 1 out of 3 men have this problem.
I think it's even worse.
It's one of the 3
Statistic
people,
for women.
because the women make it 1 out of 3 instead of 1 out of 2.
I was going to say, I just would like you to really own your voice more.
Yeah.
That I feel that that your voice could have more fluctuation in it to just bring some more dramatic
Yeah. Can I
connection.
to add to that just a little bit? This is for everybody. You're doing something you've never done before. Most of us haven't been up here and told our story in massive vulnerability and tried to engage a crowd. Most of us, this is kind of a new experience for us. And be okay with being outside of yourself for a moment or two, right? In other words, instead of sitting and be like, well, that's just not who I am. No, just become that, right? Yeah, if that's not who you are right now, step into that space, and guess what? all of a sudden you are that person, right? You get to choose how you show up in that space.
Like be a storyteller.
Be a storyteller. Yeah, absolutely. And so, very much so, if you're not used to using inflection in your voice,
Do it.
oh well, do it. Yeah, use some inflection. If you're not used to engaging someone and looking at them in the face when you're talking to them, then do it. Like, just do it anyway. And it'll be uncomfortable at first because you're not used to it. It'll be uncomfortable raising your hand because you're not used to it. All these things are going to be uncomfortable because they're things we've never done before. But do it anyway.
So on that note, really quickly, Heather and I were talking right before this about things that I recommended that she go listen to some podcasts. And while we're talking about this, there's some phenomenal storytelling podcasts out there.
Absolutely.
TED has a series on storytelling. Excuse me, and there's a storytelling podcast called Snap Judgment that is absolutely incredible. So if you're wanting to learn how to use your voice better and what inflections to use and how to utilize those ups and downs and how to utilize tone as you're telling a story, listen to storytelling podcasts. In September, there's the Tividoga Storytelling Festival. Go to it. They actually do other events throughout the year, so go to their website and check it out, because storytelling, when you're doing this type of thing, standing up in front of people, researching that is super, super helpful.
And for anyone also that wants more practice, every evening from 8:30 to 9 p.m., my children are going to bed. If you want to know if your story's riveting or not, either pay attention or they won't. Okay, yes. Immediate feedback. I'm kidding. All right, thank you, Heather. That's awesome. All right.
Wait, can I just ask when your event is?
April 29th.
April 29th? Where is it? Is it on the calendar?
DVD. It's going to be in Springville.
Wileen, can I ask, is there any kind of bulletin board or anything where we can put our invitations here at the office so people can see it?
Put them on the calendar. That's a great idea.
I guess it's all on the calendar, but it would be really great to be
That's a
able
good idea.
to put something too.
What if there's not usually anybody at that front desk? I mean, maybe,
Could we leave some
Sure.
flyers there?
maybe we could, just have like
I'm
some
okay with
stacks
that.
of
That'd be
grant
awesome.
invitations. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Super, thanks.
Don't, but just so you know, that's not your marketing.
Yeah.
Okay? Study marketing. Okay. Okay, so,
I
yes.
just wondered if you were asking who wants to go. I want to get my number.
Yes, I know that we've got a grand opening tomorrow, so I just wanted to give them an opportunity first, if you don't mind.
Oh, that's
if
good.
that's okay. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's go up just because I know you guys,
Yay.
tomorrow is the big day here. Plus, I want you to have anticipation for what you're going to say, Catherine. You gotta sit in that a little bit.
I'd love to hear her sing. That's a real good
Calm the nerves a bit, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Hi! I'd like to welcome you all here today. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. I just want to start out with a quote. Gordon B. Hinckley said, "Try a little harder to be a little better." And I want to ask you a question. How many of you believe in self-improvement? Raise your hand. How many of you have hopes and dreams? Raise your hand. And how many of you would love to wake up every morning feeling accomplished and feeling like you're on the right path towards those hopes and dreams? Raise your hand. I want to share with you a little bit about how I got knocked off of my path and how I'm getting back on, or how I've gotten back on. So growing up, I was a very extremely energetic child, I was the youngest of 7, and I was the kid that would climb up in your lap and talk your ear off. Have you ever experienced a child getting hyper because they ate a lot of sugar? I would get hyper because I was around people. That was my hyper. And one day, my sister and I got invited over to a friend's house for a play date, and I was so excited. And we went and we were playing, and this sneaky little thought popped into my head that said, she thinks you're annoying and she doesn't really want you here. And so me, being my talkative self, I asked her, do you think I'm annoying? I was about 7. And she said, well, yeah. And then went right on narrating our playtime. And at that moment, my whole inside sunk. And after that, I started looking for signs. I started looking for voice tone, body language. Even somebody's silence would tell my perception of their disapproval towards me. And that would in turn make me either shut down and not be able to speak at all and be depressed, or it would make me overtalk and say something else stupid and then feel depressed. It's this vicious cycle. How many of you have ever said something and immediately regretted it? Raise your hand. I felt that all the time. I always wanted to be a rock star. And I wanted to have a band. And I was really good at expressing myself through writing and through singing. But I wasn't good at talking. And general communication, you have to be able to talk. You have to be able to talk to your band. You have to be able to talk to the people that you want to do gigs for. And I just couldn't seem to do it. And so one day, I asked myself, I was particularly mad at myself. And I thought, I have got to get to the root of this problem. I have to figure this out. And so, being good at writing, I decided to grab a pen and a paper and a cup, and I went out to my sister's driveway, and I sat down and I wrote a song. And the imagery that came to me was like a puppet, or maybe a ghost that was living inside of me, controlling my mouth. Can I sing that song for you today?
We'd love it.
Absolutely.
Cool. It's called Awkward Monster. My awkward monster has no place better to be. But why would she change her ways when it comes so naturally? Oh, begging her to save some face experience to the age of 24, that was 17 years. I finally made a breakthrough after 17 years, and I was so excited. I loved that song. But even though I had pinpointed my story, I still didn't know how to change. And like the song says, why would I change? It was easier not to change. It's what came naturally. It was autopilot. How many of you would like to believe that change is easy? Raise your hand. I had a belief that change was possible, but I had no idea how to do it. So about 3 months ago, I was introduced to a seminar called Limitless. And I took a leap of faith and I went. I truly believe that nothing is placed in front of us without a reason. And I wanted to go just to gain whatever knowledge I could. And as we've previously established, we're people of improvement. We want to get better. So the third day, I was sitting in the seminar, and I was pondering in my mind what I could do to feel better. What was the number one thing that was holding me back from my dream? And my story came to me. The story that I wasn't good enough at talking, that I was annoying, that nobody wanted to be around me. And I used the tools that I was learning at that seminar to change that belief. I've come to a realization that change is easy. And I write my own song. And I'm telling you my story today with my own words. Woo. And I'm going to sing for you my new song. Revolution, step into life, how it will lead to change who I will become, will change the world all around me. And oh, this is my new belief. And oh, this is where I'm meant to be. So, I just want to invite you all right now to close your eyes. And I want you to imagine what your biggest dream in life is. And then I want you to think, what is holding you back from that? I want you to deeply consider all the messages that you're learning tonight. And if anything resonates with you that could possibly help you on your journey to that dream, please make the choice to follow it. Thank you.
Hey, you brought tears.
Well done.
That must be great.
Oh my gosh.
Are you the same girl?
I'm saying, this is like the pool shark. You're like, acts like she plays pool bad, and then draining all the,
Nicely done.
Okay, feedback.
No, it was just fun to have seen what you did and then have been here with the comments and to see what you chose to integrate, and it's so much more powerful than just time around. Your questions are good, and Stephen's suggestion of coming up with another song you sang it with even more power, that you can see the
Oh,
difference
man, there's
between.
energy flood the room.
Yeah.
My favorite part was when you like slammed the cup down at the very end. No, well, like for you that may be like it's done, but for me that was like the exclamation point, like this is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I love the question, how many want to know that change is easy?
That's right.
Yeah.
Hardly anybody has that belief.
We all love to know, right? Yeah.
So that drew me in, like, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
It was like I saw that little 7-year-old girl coming out, that bubble, that light. I loved it. I just loved it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we can integrate the child in us, for an adult, some of the things that we lost in childhood, and that was what your whole story was, and we saw it. We saw it in between now and, last week and this week.
Yeah.
There she is! Come on! Yeah.
Awesome.
You have such a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
Very talented singer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the thing at the last, close your eyes and invite people to embrace their happiness, their big goals. That's good. And I wasn't sure if you were going to offer a step they could take. Like, I think it was pretty inspiring.
Absolutely.
Because you already said, look, change is easy and listen to my new belief. That might have been enough, but if you're really wanting to close or something, there
So
might have
she's
been.
not closing,
Right.
right?
I think you are.
I think I
I
have.
love the invitation though to listen,
Absolutely.
to be open to what is being offered.
And I think that's what I mainly want
That was
to
perfect.
invite,
I thought that was perfect.
is openness.
I was going to say, just what can you help them with? I was thinking your phrase of a question was, I want you to. Change that to consider,
Okay.
because I don't want to be told
Yeah.
Yeah,
that.
like that.
Yeah, so. it
Or I
just-
invite you maybe.
Yeah, or I invite you or something.
Yeah, along that same lines, the first question you asked, I would love to sing that song for you. Would that be okay? That was really kind of timid, like, would that be okay? And it would be way better if you were able to say, I would love to sing this song for you. Can I share that with you? Or I'd love to share that with you. Would you like that? You know, something just a little bit.
Yeah.
Or just even be excited. Do you guys want to hear this?
Yeah.
Like this is the
You
song
wanna hear the song?
I love.
Yeah.
You guys want to hear it?
Tell me if you want to hear it. Yeah.
And like that, be that bubbly.
The first one or the last one? Or both?
The first one is what I was going to
But I loved how you said it was 17 years. I mean, that's a long time. That's a long time. So I loved you sharing that.
Actually, I like that you didn't ask us to play the second half.
Yeah, no.
No,
Yeah, I do.
But the first one,
Yeah.
be more bubbly. Yeah, just.
You already have
I like
permission
that.
for the second.
Yeah.
Because you're showing
want it,
improvement.
Yeah.
My perception of that, though, that first song is kind of more of a timid,
Yeah.
persona, and so I thought it was totally appropriate to ask permission there, and then, just like you did at the end, to just go into it in confidence. I mean, that just shows a shift here.
Yeah, and I don't think it was that you were asking permission to.
Right, it was just,
It was more how it was phrased, and I thought you could, well, it was, I mean, like she's saying, that's where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But it might be just maybe a little bit different.
yeah.
Now I'll sing you my new song.
Would it be okay if I sang you this song? Instead of, I'd love to sing you this song, would that be okay? Just the nitpicky. Isn't that awesome? Don't you love it when you can get to nitpicky?
But I was thinking too, that song that from after 17 years, that was a real breakthrough for you. So to have some, yeah, you could be kind of like, this was finally, I broke through.
Well, you do say that right after you play the song. Like that, I was really excited I'd made this breakthrough.
Yeah.
So I think it's perfect.
I want to sing it for you.
A couple things. After the first time you sang, you did really good after the second time. The first time, I didn't feel that you received the applause. And so, just being aware of that, just acknowledging the audience is one thing. And then when we were on the call just now, on the Red Ocean training just now, I mentioned to you about offering it, bringing something that was a gift for somebody. It could be simple as, like I said, a favorite quote, or it doesn't have to be anything, that costs you money. Do you have that, like, as a YouTube recording or something like that? You could just actually put the link on a little
My
slip of
song?
paper with your, yeah.
The
So
new-
maybe
new version.
record yourself and put it on YouTube or something.
By tomorrow.
Or even print off the words and give it to them as a poem or something, like
Yeah,
that.
I think that would be cool to have, or maybe what you could do is, everybody here tonight, I have your emails, I'll send you a link as soon as I'm gonna put this on YouTube and I'll send you a link to it.
Or I'm doing a concert next week and you guys get to all come for only $1,000 a piece.
Yes, right?
Everyone else is gonna pay $5,000.
Anyway.
That's perfect. I like
Like
that.
that one? Yes.
I'm just wondering if it would, and you tell me, if it would be appropriate to ask the audience to then sing your victory song with you at the end. You sing it, and then you say, okay, now I want all of you to sing with me.
Pass out the
And you have all the, and you have the words, and then you do it together. I just think that would add a lot of really good energy into the
I'll think about that.
possibility.
That's a good
Your
idea.
event's tomorrow night.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
You should all come.
That's right. That's right.
It's right here.
It's here.
It's right here.
That's it.
Okay.
It's 6 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
For like refreshments and stuff. And it's
Yeah, the live stream starts at 6, the actual event starts at 6:30.
Yeah.
Station.
How is my walking?
That was
Like,
great.
I was thinking about it also.
Your conversation with your vision when you were a child?
Cool.
I thought your pace was great, and even when you had to stop and collect your thoughts, it wasn't distracting or.
I like to do that.
I think, although one thing, the same thing that Mary Ann said to Heather is like you want to keep it a little bit more up here instead of like right here.
Yeah.
Like don't hug your ribs, like
Keep it a little
you
more.
cross your feet.
I do so much. I just do that just standing. I get nervous all the time.
It feels like you're hiding behind a cross.
Oh.
Power stance.
Oh, yeah, there you are.
Okay. Anything else? It's fantastic.
That was awesome. That's fantastic. Okay. You ready? And then we'll go with Catherine, and then I'm gonna go into the presentation. What? We're teaching how to close back to a limitless presentation, right? I mentioned that last week.
Well, I'm not sure how we'll be able to follow that up very well, but I'll do my best. So I wanted to talk today about heroes. So I wanted to start with the question, what are some of your favorite heroes? They can be fictional or real. Stephen?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Anyone else?
Captain Moroni.
Captain Moroni. He's fantastic too. Great. Both of those are awesome heroes. And I'm sure that we could sit all day and talk about heroes. At least I could. And so one thing that I want to recognize in every hero story, both Captain Moroni and Spider-Man, there's always a point in the story, usually at the beginning, when things are kind of normal and they're within their comfort zone. And then something happens, and whether by force or whether by the hero's own choice, they're pushed far outside of that comfort zone. They come into these obstacles that they have to overcome and triumph over. Also, in each hero's story, is generally a mentor of some kind, like Gandalf or Dumbledore or Professor Xavier. You can probably tell I like fantasy and sci-fi. That don't solve the problems for the hero, but rather these mentors unlock the potential and power already inside of the hero through guidance. In not every story does the hero succeed every time, though. There are many times that the hero fails. Spider-Man steps to the side and lets a thief get by for petty revenge. Frodo, at the very climax of the entire series, pulls the ring back at the last second. These stories, when this happens, can cause pain as we, the viewer or the reader, are accompanying these heroes and we think, no, don't do that. You were almost there. Why does it cause such a reaction inside of each of us when the heroes don't make it? Stephen?
We all want to make it. You know, and so here we are watching their story, and you're typically drawn in, and you're connecting yourself with what they're going through the whole time. And so when they don't make it, you almost feel like you're not going to make it. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
make it.
In that moment, we are the hero.
Yeah.
We're standing there in their place, and it doesn't happen. I think that part of the reason that hurts is because it can hit a little too close to home. That each of us in our own lives come into circumstances where we are pushed outside of our comfort zone, outside of what we feel like we're able to do. And many times we fall short. We feel that lack of ability to actually achieve what we want. I want to share with you some of my own path, and it's very closely connected with heroes. And I want to share with you this to illustrate to you what I've learned over the past few months about maybe some of the differences between the times when the hero succeeds and the times when they fail. So ever since I was young, I love stories. You might have been able to tell because I've been referencing them constantly. When I was so young that I still didn't even understand words completely, my mother said that she could get me to sleep and quiet me down by telling stories. One of my favorite Christmas gifts that I ever received was my grandmother sent me a little boombox that had a cassette player in it with the Old Testament stories for children on tape. And my mother supplemented this with other stories on cassette tape. I listened to these so much, I can still quote to you word for word the first half of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. As I grew older, I learned more about stories and I began to analyze them, figure out what was good in the story, what was bad in the story, what made stories work. And it just seemed like a natural step for me to start writing, to start creating my own. I have been trying to write since I was about 14. But as I would write, I would start hitting a wall consistently. I would write a few chapters, maybe 10 even, and find that something wrong, like my life would get busy, and I'd lose track of where I was, so I'd start over, or I realized the first chapters didn't make any sense connected with the next one, so I would start over, or something else would happen. And this happened time and time again. I tried a number of things. I started writing groups so that I could get some type of motivation and I lost the word. Some accountability, thank you. Where someone's gonna be like, hey, you better write this chapter this week. But it always seemed to fall short. I never made it. And as this happened again and again, I began to wonder, maybe I'm not supposed to write stories. It's obviously not working very well. And so, a few months ago, my last attempt at writing had fallen short a while back, and I haven't written for a long time. My wife, Katie, was able to attend this Limitless event that she has told you about already. And from my perspective, it was very interesting because she came back home full of energy and excited about doing things and And she was telling me all these crazy stories about like breaking arrows with your neck and breaking boards in half and walking on glass. And I was like, whoa, this is pretty wild. And she insisted that I needed to come to the next one because she tried to explain it, but she said, you just need to be there. It's like, well, okay. I trusted her, and so I went. And while I did approach it with a certain amount of skepticism, I also approached it understanding that this event had really changed my wife and made her a much happier person. So noticeable that I saw it. And I thought, well, if this event did that for her, then I need to give it some credit and some benefit of the doubt. So I attended. The most important part of my attendance occurred during something called an angel session. At the Limitless event, they will have a mentor sit down one-on-one with you and talk with you about where you want to go or whatever you want to do. And as we sat and talked, he asked me, he said, what is it that you want to do? And he had me close my eyes and think. And the vision that popped into my head for this was I imagined myself writing the pinnacle of my book. I imagined that moment that when you're reading, you can't put the book down. It might be 3 in the morning, it doesn't matter, you need to finish right now. Except that instead of me reading it, as I had so often experienced, I was writing it. And so that became clear to me. And so he said, so he worked with me, what was my obstacle? And I realized that my obstacle that had been reinforced over and over by these failures and by outside experiences was this idea that writing is really, really hard. Hardly anybody finishes a book, and even those that do never get published. I mean, it's the 1 in a billion chance, basically. And I realized that wall, that idea that writing was so difficult was what was stopping me. And so using some of the tools that we learned there, I've turned that around. I now write effortlessly. When I write so fast that my fingers are trying to keep up with my brain. My typing speed is about 40 words a minute. That's how fast I write now. I wrote 2,400 words in an hour. Just going. And it's a completely different experience. The chapters flow together. I know what's going on now. I haven't had the need to be like, oh, well, this first chapter doesn't really fit with this chapter. I better. It works. There will be revisions, of course, but I've never written so much quality content ever. I want to invite all of you, as my wife invited you earlier, to think about your dreams. To remember that there was a time in your life when anything was possible, when you knew you could do anything. I want to affirm to you right now that that time is still here. That time is now. You are ready to become whatever it is that you were meant to become. As you listen here tonight, there will be offers to give you mentors and tools. Mentors just like Dumbledore and Professor Xavier, to help you unlock that hero inside of you so that you can rise up and achieve that dream. So I'd like to invite Stephen Miller to the front to share with us about this program.
See, Dumbledore has a class on divination. Anyway, all right. Awesome. Okay, feedback.
I love your voice. I know. I love your voice. Yeah, yeah, it is a great storytelling.
I try to leverage it.
Especially Alibaba.
Alibaba, yes. I love how you stepped into that.
That's right.
Tape recording. Yeah. No, it's just so much fun to see the improvement from last time you presented to
Pretty awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, and just how you've really created a flow of what it is that where you're going, and we're coming with you. I was just thinking, you asked some questions, but there were times where I felt like you could engage us by asking another question when you were at the bottom. And the first time I said, you asked something, has anyone achieved what you want? I can't remember what the rest of that was, and I thought perhaps it was there you could ask the question, has anyone ever felt some disappointment for not achieving what you had wanted or something like that, as a possibility. And then the other one, I've been trying to write since I was age 14. I guess maybe it's part of my upbringing. My dad never liked us saying trying. But you could say, I started writing at age 14.
I thought about that. Part of it was fitting into this idea that I wasn't succeeding.
Yeah.
You know what? But just to say it a different way too, because I had the same thought. Don't say you were trying. You were writing.
Yeah, you were writing.
But because I don't, you're going there. You're taking them to this place where you're going to tell them that you were writing successfully, meaning you were writing, but that wasn't coming together for you. So it just in the story, I would just let them know, guys, I've been writing since I was 14 years old. I would sit down and I would start writing, and then the thoughts would stop coming, and I would stop.
Yeah.
And I would sit down again and start writing, and then I would stop. You were writing, right?
Yeah.
You weren't trying. You were actually writing. You weren't completing a successful iteration of whatever, right? You weren't completing it. And again, this is maybe a small thing, but I felt the exact same way, which is, don't say you were trying to write. You were writing.
Yeah.
But you weren't having the success in the writing you had hoped to. I don't know.
Well, and I think there's also a way to say too, because I think what you're trying to express is when you say try, is that you would start but you would never finish, right? And so there's a way to say, like you could just say, I've been starting stories since I was 14.
That's a great way to say it. That's actually a great way
Right?
to say it.
I've been starting stories.
Yeah.
I've been starting books, and I've been starting this since I was 14. But for the first time, like I'm just now getting to the point where I'm finishing
Finishing it.
Like because of this experience, I'm finishing this story because now writing is easy, or I am a writer.
I agreed about asking more questions, and two places that I thought would be a good idea to ask a question is when you said the pinnacle of the book where you're like, I have to finish it before 3 o'clock in the morning, or whatever, and you could say, have any of you experienced reading the pinnacle of a book and you wanted to finish it and you couldn't put it down? And then the other one is when you were inviting back to when anything was possible, ask them to recall when they can you think back, and can you remember when your childlike
Because that's the
self
question instead of
Yeah.
just telling them.
Yeah. thought anything was possible?
I will say that, like, this is just fun for me because huge improvement, like just unbelievably huge improvement, and the flow of the, of your presentation, everything fit together very, very well for me. I came along, the imagery that you used flowed extremely well. I love the examples, and I love the ability that you had to pull out examples from the crowd and to implement those into your, that is awesome connection with the crowd, because it's like, oh, this isn't just some canned presentation. He's using what we're saying, which I think every time you can do that is awesome. So just huge kudos to the work that you've done over the last week. I mean, it's been amazing to watch. Thank you.
Words flow to me.
Absolutely. That's exactly right.
So one thing I want to say, the question you asked about how do you feel, that was a great choice of verbs, when the hero fails to do the heroic. Almost, and then, it didn't happen. How did you feel? Or, that really appealed. And then you might use that same dramatization when you say, I started writing, but like Frodo,
I almost
got it done, and I left the hero story unfinished. And now in the end, you can say something, and now when I write, the hero does the heroic action. There's no
Hero
more,
makes it.
there's no more doubt about the hero.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Or I've become that hero for myself, or whatever. Anyway, I love that idea. Okay. Yeah.
I just wanted to say at first, if I just said what I just wanted to comment about, I can't believe that. Today I wanted to, or I want to share with you. No, I think it's a bit stronger to say, tonight, I'm going to speak with you about.
This is the moment.
That's right. You know what? There was a man.
Yeah, don't you think that's a little bit stronger to say, I want to speak with you now, or I am sharing with you, rather than I want to share with you. It's just a little bit back a little bit.
Yeah, that was like when you asked who's your favorite hero. Instead of waiting for hands, just say, hey, shout him out, and then let everybody just be
That's a good idea.
putting it in.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
energy
great.
again.
Yeah,
I think you could say, this is the moment that I will share with you. In your Alibaba voice.
Okay, just one last thing, both you and your wife, when there's a pause, like I always said, your phrase for both of you, you can tell you're married, is, and so.
And so, sorry.
I thought, just be aware of that, that's sort of your
Also,
filler,
replace
those are your
that
filler.
that came to pass.
Yeah,
All right, big round of applause. That's awesome. Okay, Catherine?
Actually, you know what? I have been on this stage before. My husband hasn't, and we have a presentation coming up on Friday. So would you mind if I just turn the time?
I don't mind.
You want to do it? Or you want me to?
Okay, I just want to make sure we don't deprive Laura because
Yeah, Laura,
That's
you
true,
have
too.
she has an
You
event.
know what? I will postpone the presentation, so let's get a few more then. Let's start with Laura, and then we'll go to Richard. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I don't know if I'm as polished as these other two boys, these young people. I want to thank
Hold on,
all.
pause. Let's start that over again. Ready? You're pulling this over. I am amazing, and I'm going to do an amazing job of this, and I'm just as polished and amazing.
Thank you.
Better? Just want to reset.
Okay. Hello, I'm so excited to have all of you here tonight. I know in Utah, or in the church in general in Utah, that Friday night is date night. And so I am so grateful that you chose to do your date with me. I believe all of us have a story inside of us. But sometimes we like to hide parts of our story. Do you believe that you have a story and that you sometimes hide part of that story? Raise your hand if that is you. Thank you. I'm not the only one. Thank you for joining me in that. Many of you know me as Laura's Therapeutic Massage. I've been a massage therapist for 25 years now, just almost 25 years, a little short of 25 years. And I have enjoyed it immensely because it has been my safe place. And I also enjoyed the 6 years that I taught at a massage school in Western New York. But let me take you back to before I became a massage therapist. I would like to share that story with you. And if it's all right with you, can I share that story? Raise your hand if that's okay. Thank you. As a young wife, I felt that it was necessary for me to help out my family with the extra income that was needed. And so, because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, I searched around trying to find all sorts of ways that I could maybe just stay home and take care of my children while bringing in that extra income. And so I did things like, I was an Avon lady, I was a Sarah Coventry jewelry lady, I was a Watkins Home Products lady, and then I moved to big time. I went to Amway, Quick Start. Okay, I know. You're thinking to yourself, aren't they the same? And I thought that too, but my friend guaranteed me that since it had been a few years and they changed their name, it was a better company. Okay, not. So, well, my list could go on and on, but I will just say that I have 3 beautiful children. My oldest one was married and living in Utah. My other daughter was preparing to serve mission for our church, and my son had just turned 14. Well, my 25th wedding anniversary was approaching, and I thought, how wonderful, get a chance to celebrate with all my family and friends, and it would be a great time. Until the day came when my husband announced that he didn't want to celebrate or have a party or do anything of the sort. Now that was quite a big blow to me because I was looking forward to that. And then my husband, because I had no idea what went wrong and why he didn't want to celebrate or how I could even change his mind, he finally decided to tell me that he no longer wanted to be married to me. That he had decided in order to find his true love, he needed to move on. Now, I don't know about you, but that was a real blow in my life. I don't know if you've ever gone through challenges like that. And maybe on a lighter note, I should tell you that I'm the youngest of 6 children. We didn't come from a very rich family, but my father used to always say, no matter how hard the time gets, remember that you're an Ames. And the Ameses always survive. Now don't get me wrong, I had my self-pity party, and I let it go on for a while, and then I remembered, hey, I'm an Ames. And so I did what I could to survive. That is when 2 mentors, very important mentors, came into my life. The first mentor was my Heavenly Father. I've always known him, but I didn't know him as well as I did from this point on. We had a lot of long and very heated discussions. And even when I yelled at him, I still knew he loved me. My other mentor used to ask me a lot of questions, and he would listen to me. And I probably for about 6 months or more kept telling him, you know, I think I'd like to be a massage therapist. And he would listen, and he would smile. Finally, one day came, and I walked into the office, and I said, guess what? God and I have decided that I'm going to be a massage therapist, and I am going to go all the way from New York down to Florida for my training. And he said, it's about time. And so I was a little bit surprised at that. But he said, it had to be your decision. Well, as you can tell, it had been kind of hard for me to make decisions. 6 months to decide that that's what I wanted to do. It was quite a while. So I went and I got my training, and I came back and I taught at a massage school for 6 years until it got to the point where I was working too hard, doing school and my own practice, and something had to give before I did. And so I let the school go and filled in with all my clients. About 6 years ago, I decided that I wanted to help families in a different way. So I thought I would like to do real estate. I didn't want to show houses, but I wanted to buy homes where I could allow young families to rent from me and raise their family in a safe and nice home. So I signed up for a real estate education course. Now, my new husband at the time was very supportive. And of course, I needed that support. One thing, I'm not real good at making decisions, so I needed support. And another was because of the cost of the education. I mean, I'm not talking about just a few $100s. I'm talking about several thousands of dollars for this education course. And so I studied real hard. I did all my homework. And I even had, for about 6 weeks, a coach that I could call for help. After 6 weeks, it was going to cost me more money. Well, by the end of the 5th week or so, I felt that I needed some more help. And I was trying to weigh the help and the cost. And the cost got a lot heavier. And so I started getting discouraged. And my sweet husband said, "Honey, just let it go. Don't worry about it. Just let it go." How many of you have started something? Raise your hands if you've started something and it was hard to stop worrying about it and you couldn't quite quit. For me, it was the guilt of the expense of the class. And I tried to figure out in my mind what I could do. But I had to finally just do what my husband said. Just let it go and move on. So it wasn't, maybe about 2 years later, I was invited to a new event. It was called Strongbrook. I wasn't sure what it was about, but I thought, hey, it's a nice night out. Let's go. And then they started talking. The presentation went on. And just about then, I got so excited, I went to my husband, and knocking him almost into the next chair with the other person, and said, "This is what I wanted. This is what I was talking about." I had never heard done for you real estate. How many of you have heard about that? Bridget? Okay. Now, I can't say that this earlier real estate program, education, was a total loss. Because, like I said, I did my homework, I did my studying, and I was able to purchase one home in Elk Ridge, Utah. It wasn't a beautiful home then, it is now, and the family loves living there. So, because of my past experience, we decided that we were going to really research Strongbrook. And we did for about 4 months. And then we finally decided that this was the team that I should join. And I can say that with the help of the team from Strongbrook, we are very happy, and we have purchased 3 more homes to help other families have a nice place to live. About 6 months ago, the parent company, Strongbrook, started a new program called Limitless for people who wanted to have personal development and to improve their own lives. through personal development. I have with me tonight Gary Norris and Carolyn Norris, and they are going to talk to you about these two areas of Strongbrook. And I promise you that if you listen, you will go home tonight with more knowledge and insight than you probably ever heard of before. With that, I'll bring on Gary. Not as polished, right?
Personality keeps shining through.
So first of all,
I don't know what to do with my hands, right?
no, that's not it.
Oh,
Are you ready to step out and be who you actually are?
I guess so.
Because what I saw is I felt like you were hiding behind a whole lot of things you kept on saying about yourself in your presentation.
Okay.
You kept on saying that you don't make good decisions. Do you make good decisions?
Yeah, I do now because my husband makes me.
No.
No?
Claim it.
Oh,
Did you decide was Strongbrook right for you?
yes,
Did you make the decision to join Strongbrook?
yes,
Has that been a good decision?
yes.
Utilize that as an asset. Don't go back into every other bad decision. Have we all, by the way, how many of you here in this room have made a bad decision at one time or another in your life? We all have, right? Raise your hand. Absolutely, right? We have all done that. And I'm just saying this because I'm sitting here in the back of the room and I'm thinking to myself, Laura, you are so huge of a person, and you are inviting people to make some massive, amazing change. And I just feel like you're holding the words that you were using were holding you down. And I wanted to see you release those words, release those beliefs if they're beliefs of yours. Maybe we get to do some belief breakthrough later on with you, but I don't know. I saw you as this just huge angel of a woman who was bringing amazing things to these individuals that are going to come and be at your event. And whether that's 300 people or 3 people, doesn't matter. Claim it. Claim what you do well. Talk about what you do well. You make good decisions. We've all made bad decisions. That makes sense?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Yes?
Well, I want to add to that because a lot of what I wrote down here had to do with that. And at first, I wrote some things like, I'm not good at decisions, but then I decided to work with Strongbrook. Okay, do you really want to tell people that you're bad at decisions? And now I decided to do Strongbrook, I want you to listen. So, but what I gathered as you were finishing up, I was like, okay, finally I get it. You are searching. You are making bad decisions. Correct. You were choosing to participate in things that was part of your journey. It was part of your search for what you were looking for. And you were really undecided about things, not because it was a bad decision or because you're a bad decision maker. It was because it didn't feel right in here.
Right.
When it felt right, this is what you're looking for. You knew what you were looking for, and it wasn't in front of you until you found Strongbrook.
Very good.
Yeah. So if you can communicate it that way, then everybody's going to want to hear what's going to be said.
Furthermore, Laura established expertise in massage. And so now you can claim expertise in decision making. But your initial question, I liked it. Do you believe you have a story and are hiding it? And maybe you yourself are still hiding, but now you have a story because it's a powerful breakthrough and you've emerged. And so and that was you, and now you're moving on to strength. I also thought maybe you should move around the stage strategically, a little better stage instead of frozen in one spot.
My husband says, Toastmaster says, you don't be a pinball.
Different schools of thought, right?
Well, that's a speech, and this is a breakthrough kind of invitation to power.
also, I was, because I left some things out too, and I thought, I'm saying one thing and my mind is going, you didn't even tell them that.
Yeah.
And I thought, and how can I segue back to there? So I gotta work on that. We found that.
Yeah. So a couple things. Make sure that you're clear in your mind where you're taking them. And I think that's what you were saying just now, is,
Yeah.
you know, you had some things that you wanted to mention or you forgot to mention, but you had other parts that you wanted to bring in that maybe were referencing that. Make sure that you're clear in your mind where you're taking them. Any reference to anything should have a very specific reason why you're talking about it. I felt like there were a few facts in there that were kind of added in that didn't really connect with anything necessarily. They were just kind of, oh, by the way, this is also part of, you know, my life story, which is great. But just make sure that every piece that you're putting in there is adding to that journey that you're taking them on. At the end of the day, what you really want them to do is to get a game plan, right, and come participate with the Wealth Intensive or whatever else, right? So that, or Limitless. So just get clear on what it is that you want to offer them, and then is this particular part of your presentation or that particular part of your presentation adding to that? Is it adding to that journey and helping them understand the growth they need to take? So, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
So the theme I'm using is retire happy, and I kind of like the idea of connecting all the jobs that you did along with your massage therapy and all that. I felt like that was kind of in the beginning and by itself, and then you said more about your family in the middle, and then it went to massage therapy and real estate over here, but I didn't feel a connection between that. But I think it would be really cool to connect those two as your search. You were searching and you were trying to figure out financial stability and the ability to retire happy.
Great comment.
And along with that, one of the things I wrote is that in the beginning, you were, like, step one was survival. You know, you shared the story, and I think you could probably get through some of those details a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
But it started with, I'm an Ames. Ames are survivors. And so, you know, I was focused on surviving to begin with. But then, you know, I was searching for something. I actually wanted to go beyond survival. I wanted to be happy. And, you know, this process of, I finally found it, and, you know, this is where I am, and I can honestly say now that I am happy.
Yeah.
So I actually wrote that down too. I said, aims always survive, and I wrote down want to thrive.
Yeah.
No one just wants to subsist, right? Or
Yeah.
just to exist and be okay with it. You aren't just a survivor, you're a thriver, you know, and you emanate that joy to everyone around you.
Mm-hmm.
So I would incorporate that as part of your conversation. Hey, my father taught me that, hey, Ames, we're Ameses and we survive. But there was more for me. I didn't want to just survive. You were surviving in all these different experiences that you had, but really what you are wanting to do is to be happy in retirement. I mean, this is the theme, right? Being happy in retirement. Most people aren't happy in retirement, they're just surviving
Yeah.
in retirement.
Well, and I wasn't sure how to bring my ex-husband leaving. I mean, you know, because he
Doesn't even need to be part of the story. I mean, I don't even know.
I mean, he told me he was gay and that's why he left, but because he had to find his true love, and, you know. So I didn't know whether I should say that or
I think
just let him leave or what.
Before somebody told you to bring in the pain a little bit more, and so that might be why you brought it in the first place, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to bring up him per se, although, are your relationships part of being
Well,
happy?
I probably never would have gone to massage school if my first marriage had dissolved.
Okay.
I mean, so I have to make that somehow transition.
You could touch on it and say my first marriage dissolved and I realized that I had to survive, and tell the story about your dad telling you that, and then say what you did to about it. Yeah, I think cutting it down to something like that actually, and even taking out that entire first section would probably make it more clear on where you're going with it. But just throwing it, you know what I mean? Putting it in there saying this is the reason that I was searching for financial stability.
I think everything should have a purpose and a direction.
Correct.
What was the low point of your, or the greatest pain, your lowest point? Was it the marriage breakup, or that you did a course that cost you so much and didn't really set you free?
Well, he said we had to have lots of lows and highs.
But
So,
I wanted to know
Yeah.
which one was the deepest pain or sorrow?
And let me amend that.
Laura's just a happy person. She's not happy.
That's well, let me just amend this real quick. You don't have to go up and down a million times. You can go down once and up once.
oh, okay.
And that's also okay.
Yeah.
You just, the whole point of the ups and downs are, you want them to experience, first of all, who you are right now. You want them to experience, you want them to understand that you understand where they are as well. Because most people that you're talking to, by the way, most people that are going to be in the room with you, listening to you, aren't having a happy retirement.
Yeah.
That's why they're coming, is to figure out how they can have a happy retirement. So I want you to bring it down to a low point where your retirement looked bleak for you. Like that should be the low point for you. It shouldn't necessarily have to do although it can. It doesn't necessarily have to do with your husband leaving you. It doesn't necessarily have to do with anything about him necessarily. But I do want to feel when you were feeling despair for your retirement. Or hopeless at a point, because I'm sure there's got to be some. I hope so. Was there a point?
I hope.
For you, I hope that you've done horrible at some point. That's not what I mean. But I think most of us have experienced that at some point or another. And if you're going to bring them back up to this point of happy retirement, right? If you're going to bring them back up to happy here, then I need to know you've got to connect with them, because right now they're not there. So connect with them somewhere. Maybe there was a moment where you were sitting there doing your finances and figuring it out while you were single, while you were married. I don't know when that was, where you realized, oh my gosh, I'm not where I need to be, and the stress of it, and the stress of not, of the family responsibilities, of whatever, of not being able to provide, or not being able to leave a legacy. I don't know. So that's kind of what I want to know, right? You're here right now, where were you? And then Stromberg helped you obviously to get back up to this idea of happy retirement, because man, you got 3 income properties right now. And anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Richard? You ready?
Not really.
There you go, if you want to hold that.
I don't think I
All
do.
right, then don't.
I know everybody can hear me. But I want to say first that we may be sharing a stage this Friday and talking about boundaries. I'm not sure, it hasn't been confirmed, but if we do, and so I haven't really prepared a whole climax and promise and all that, so I'm looking for some feedback, but this is part of a story that may also help a business like my wife presented last time. So it's tied in, but this is my focus, is just to share what I have and learn a lot from it. Well, hello there. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you today. I'd like to ask you, have any of you experienced a disappointing relationship before? Raise your hand. Well, have any of you even done everything you thought possible? You prayed, you studied, you beautified, you took classes, I don't know, just tried to make everything work for your partner, and none of it really worked. Still disappointed or sad? Make a little sound if that's you. Okay. And so I would like to know how many of you would like to be able to turn that around and find hope in a relationship when you thought there was none, and go from repellent magnetism to attractive magnetism. And if you could say, if that's you, say, that'd be me. That'd be me. Okay. Well, With your permission, I'd like to share a story. And I want to say before that I am an expert in a lot of things. Self-deception, self-denial, justification, blame shifting, making others miserable. Now that's quite a good thing to be expert of, don't you think? But happily, there is a little more. I've also learned to humble myself, turn that around, admit a lot of things that were true that I never knew were true, and to make a change in what seemed like a dismal journey. Now my story. There is much about my life and our family that one could say is successful, perhaps even stunning in some respects. We have 5 children. We have 18 grandchildren. All of those children have a degree. They're all married. None of them are asking me for money. None of them live in my home. In fact, we're living in our daughter's home. We really reversed and tricked them. And I also want to say that my bride and I, this month, will celebrate our 42nd anniversary. However, there have been some times, in fact, my marriage of this long duration would be characterized as a lonely one, without much agreement, a pretty unhappy situation. There was one time when I quit a very successful position working with Exxon in Houston. I was making around $70,000 a year, but there was something else in life, didn't know what, but I left it. We went off without a replacement job, and we went to Manti, Utah, and we bought a bed and breakfast, and we paid too much for it. But I went into it for the wrong reasons. I went into it to see if I could just please my wife. It was her turn, she said. And anyway, 4.5 years later, we finally got out of that. A lot, maybe a lot more savvy, but a lot more broke. In fact, it was a very bad investment. But the sad part of all that was that during that time, with me being very uncertain about what my life was meant to be at that point, not wanting to be an innkeeper, I actually was stupid enough to go to the point of telling my wife, okay, we'll stay together, we're just going along side by side, but I feel like we're emotionally divorced. That's a deep hole to climb out of. And yet we stayed together. That was 15 or more years, 20 years ago. And 1 year ago, we were serving a full-time mission for our church. To get to that point is quite a step. We were out there visiting people and telling them how their lives could improve if they would put things in order. And yet we couldn't even agree who the senior companion was. We struggled a lot with what are our priorities? Who do we call? Who does the teaching? And even, well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. It was about February 19th of last year. Our daughter had just come to visit us in the mission. And Kate, my wife, had a big conversation with her and her husband the night before. And I didn't know what it was all about. It didn't include me. But on February 19th, I found out that my wife had learned about support groups and about setting boundaries. I was about to find out real quick what boundaries are and how stiff they can be. And she told me in different words, but like, buddy, you have 1 month. And this is what happens. I have safety standards. I have boundaries. And I never knew how to ask for them. I've asked for them, and I never got them. And now, if in 1 month you don't agree to bring yourself into alignment with boundaries, well, there's something like, okay, computer's off by 10 o'clock every night. You don't even know the password to log into your computer. I give you 2 hours a day on a computer. When it's done, it's done. There's no more social media. There's no more professional networking. There's no more contacting old students from China. There's no more lots of things. There were a lot of boundaries spelled out. Some of them were reasonable, but only some. In fact, I could not believe some of the things she was requiring of me. But here's the devastating part. She said, you know, how missionaries occasionally get transferred. Our next transfer, if you're not in line with this, is I'm transferring home. And I'll probably take the car and you figure out how to get home yourself. And when you do get home, find a place to live. So, on the mission, with 11 months of mission left, facing a dishonorable release or having to tell the whole world, well, why was this so serious? Okay, I admit, I have had a porn addiction. I admit, I have an addiction that most people don't know about. It's called intimacy anorexia. Perhaps some of you would be interested to learn about that. But that's where I got all that expertise of denial and deception and blaming and just totally blind spots of not knowing who am I, what am I. And so nearly everything in my life was so limited. And I got to this point where I said, go home early. All my children now know that I've used porn and will probably be ashamed of me and disgusted with me. Who would have thought it could ever come to this? And so, in fact, I didn't think I could sign all those agreements. And when I first found out she was leaving, I said, I mean, this is a wicked part of me. I almost can't even admit it, but well, finally, if we separate, it's her fault, not mine, because I'm willing to stay. In fact, we did stay, and we did finish the mission. And at that point is when I started getting the learning of expertise about humbling and submission, surrender to high principles, going into 12-step programs, and spending lots of time learning about recovery. And so I am at a changed place 1 year later where things are looking pretty bright. Even 2 months ago, I would not have believed it was possible. And so how many of you think that there is hope or a change for a relationship that disappoints that could become shiny or glorious?
I do.
Testimonial. And so what I want is to share more with you at a time where I can show you what you can do to gain this hope. And as I said, reverse the magnetism from repellent to attractive and joyful.
Feedback. Yeah.
First of all, you're being very brave. Second of all, just as you told me, this is a very prevalent problem, and so as many of the people that have your story are also the same amount that have Catherine's story. And from hearing from you, I would have thought she was the nastiest devil. Just, you know, how dare she set boundaries? How dare she treat me this way? You know, these kinds of things. It pushed me away because I have had those same kinds of experiences, and so it kind of reaffirmed all of the insecurities that I had already. At like, well, how dare I even,
set boundaries for myself. And, yeah. So it was.
I think that's good feedback because that was part of my addiction,
Okay.
was thinking that she was horrid.
So I think.
And blame,
we tie it back
I
into-
put all the blame on her for our problem because she was angry and things like
I
that.
think being very clear about that, because there was a lot of kind of verbal wandering that you did in your storytelling. Have some very, very clear talking points. And the first thing that you should be number one clear about is how you feel about your wife.
Thank you.
The number one thing you need to be clear about is how you feel about your wife right now. And what role she has played in your recovery, and what role her decisions played. That, you know, she was a free agent, she was able to make these choices, and they were hard choices for her. And like, what did that do, you know, in your victimhood, in your place of addiction, this is what it was, but now in your place where you're moving out of addiction, this is now that you can see what she was doing in retrospect. You do however it is you want to phrase that, but be very, very, very clear that she's not the villain in this situation.
Yeah, and I meant to say that that was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, was to be offered a boundary so I could wake up and start to get my eyesight in focus.
Yeah.
And I will make sure that that's much clearer
Yeah,
in the future.
I think the biggest part right now is, like you said, this is the first time you've really gotten up and given this presentation. And because of being the first time, first of all, I've heard you speak before, and you're a phenomenal speaker. You're very natural, and it comes very easily for you to connect the different points in your story, different things like that. I did feel, though, there was a level of uncomfortableness for you because you didn't know exactly what you should share, or how to share it, or when to share it, or framing it appropriately for the crowd to hear. So, and that's all going to come with practice, obviously. This is why we're doing this, so you can get that feedback. So just make sure that same thing that I said to Laura, is that you're clear on exactly where you're taking them, and you're clear on the points that you want to share and how to share them. Because that way you'll be able to share them with power, whereas you were a bit timid. At least that was the feeling. You were timid in sharing some of those things because you weren't sure how to do it or how to frame it appropriately.
It used to not be open at all.
I believe
all
that.
secrecy and
Obvious, of course.
hiding, you know.
Yeah, that's what it is for most people.
And I think there's a really good opportunity for you to say, I was blaming my wife for all of these things. How many of you blame somebody else for choices that you
Absolutely.
for, like, I dug this hole for myself. How many of you have blamed somebody else for the hole you dug?
Yeah.
Right? And that kind of thing. And make sure that through this, because I think it's okay for you to share this story and share this perspective, because I think it's important for people to understand, like, your behavior was based on your on the addiction, not on what she was actually doing. Right? Your response to this was because of the addiction, not because of the choices she was making. And so it's helpful to understand that mentality as somebody who's dealing with an addicted person, that their behavior towards me, as much as they may say they're mad at me, it's not because of the choices I'm making, it's because I'm actually asking them to take responsibility. And now, to have somebody standing up in front of me saying, I'm grateful that they asked me to take that responsibility, but again, just being super, super clear about that. It's really good. It's a great story. I love it.
A couple things. I love, at the very beginning, you were talking about, I didn't write them down, but you would bring in things like, I'm an expert, and you, the way that you move and just your smile and everything, there's just something about you that is cute.
Yeah, there's a charm.
I told you! I've been talking about for years.
There's a charm. There's a charm.
Yes.
So you can
Charm.
So you can get away with saying a lot of things that most people couldn't say. Like when you were talking about how, your kids are all married, they're, all successful, whatever, a lot of people that could come back, to the audience that could be like, if I don't have that, so then am I not successful? But you can say something like that and it's okay. So I just wanted to point that out out to you that you've got that kind of fun, silly, kind of cute, charming energy that otherwise something that you say might be offensive. I loved how you brought in, you were on your mission and you're preaching this one thing and you're completely out of alignment with it. And, just that feeling of being out of alignment on the mission, I thought was a really key point. I think that this is my own thing, is that this type of story, there's a time and a place for it. I know that there might be a way to incorporate this into like a grand opening presentation or something like that, possibly. My own feeling is that there's a time and place for this type of a story. If you want to bring in this kind of a story into like a professional presentation introducing Strong Work or Limitless, I probably wouldn't share all the details. And the other thing is I didn't feel that there was a next step. So, after you share all of this, we're totally on board with the direction that you're going, and we're supportive of what you're doing, and we're excited that you and your wife are working this out and everything. But, say you were doing a fireside at church, this is awesome, but then what's the next step? If somebody is sitting in the audience and they're thinking, I'm right where he was, what's my next step? That's, where there needs to be some kind of a conversation of, hopefully Limitless or something. But again, I don't know, what's your feeling, Stephen, about presenting something like, sharing something this vulnerable and this grand opening type setting?
I think that you always need to be aware of your audience. And I think that I don't want to, I'm trying to speak, let's see. Because this is just a difficult situation. Anytime you're talking about any addiction, period, it gets deep and it gets raw very, very quickly. I think that there is a lot of power in speaking of the addiction without getting into specifics necessarily. And I think that I also believe that will connect with more people rather than alienating some people, or even putting people that may be experiencing that addiction that are still in denial an opportunity to say, well, that's not me. I don't want to give them that either, right? So sometimes when you get into specifics and you ask questions, how many of you felt this way, and you didn't do that necessarily, but when you get into the specifics, it's too much for some people and they'll just check out. So when you're in a larger audience, if you're talking and the whole thing is about addiction or porn addiction or whatever, that's a different scenario. But if it's to introduce this idea of being limitless, or if it's to introduce, and I know that we've talked about some other things, I know that you guys have some other things that you're thinking of, but this is a conversation, honestly, that can be catered very, very easily for it, just by adding or taking away certain chunks of it. So, I agree with you there.
Exactly. So I think, that it could be honed, it could be perfect if there is that purpose of taking it to taking the next step. The one thing that I will give you though that is, that I thought made it okay was there was an emotion. And so to me that showed me, it gave you credibility that you have dealt with it, you've gotten past it, and so, it does actually make me want to know what did you do to actually get to that point where you can speak openly in front of your wife, you can share in front of a group, and you're not like totally in victimhood and, broken down. So, that, again, back to who you are and the person that you are, gives you a little more license, but I don't think everybody can do that.
One thing we are looking for, and that is, real quickly, is to find the appropriate mentor to help us work out all these things and bring it to a point of having a product and all of that. So if you can recommend the right kind of mentor,
and that's where it would be appropriate in a grand opening setting, is if you have a product, if you've got a service that you're offering, a mentor, program or something that you're offering, and you're pairing it with Limitless, and it's communicated on the invitation so that people don't come and be like, thought this was a.
Yeah, we're on the invitation that says, addiction recovery and
Yeah.
living your limitless life.
Right, or something, and I can help you craft that.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, everybody, well, that takes us to our time. Thank you guys so much. And one thing that I still haven't done, but I gave an assignment a couple weeks back, I haven't forgotten, I asked you guys to go over, friends, my friends, I'm learning to here. I asked all of you to review Martin Luther King's speech. Yes, if you haven't done that, please do it again. Or if you haven't done it, do it. If you've done it, do it again. And I'd like to go over a lot, because there's a lot that goes on in that speech. A lot of this that we've been talking about, it can help you, I think, to also frame what it is that you're doing in your speeches. So,
About the I Have a Dream.
I have a dream speech. Yeah, it's about 17 minutes long. Okay, everyone, thank you.
Yeah, well, good luck with all of you with your grand opening.
Absolutely. I got it. I said thanks. Yes, and I will.
I just wanted to say that I wasn't quite sure where you were. Yeah. So that's
Well, Ken is usually the one that's updating those things, and he's been out for the last several days.
clear where I'm talking about this.
I realize that. And everything.
Yeah, no, but I just, that, today, you really have that in mind, and maybe you, like, I've noticed I keep changing my presentation, maybe you could have one that's really focused on this.
Yes.
And then you're tweaking it, and it would be one that you give this.
Yeah. We are really eager to find the right mentor.
Yeah. No, I like the way you started, said I'm an expert in